And today we are going to be talking about the Goals program in BNI Connect. Now, the Goals program that's in BNI Connect was developed in step with a goals program that was brought together by a lot of executive directors around the country and around the world, most notably in the Tampa, Florida region, where they came up with what's called GP 101 or Goal Planning 101. And it's a way that you can set goals for your chapter, but then also really track those goals throughout the year. And there's two pieces to this goal planning system. One is to come up with the actual goals that you'd like to achieve, because we all know that in order to achieve it, it has to be measurable, right? They have to be SMART goals, so they have to be measurable and attainable. So the first thing is to come up with those numbers. But the other thing that this goal system does that's really, really important is it helps you to stay on track with the action steps that you'll take along the way. So one of the things that we always struggle with, by the way, I'm a member of BNI. I've been a member of BNI since 2002, and I've been on and off the leadership team a number of times. I've been president a couple of times. I've been vice president. I've been education coordinator. I've pretty much played just about every position in the chapter. And one of the things is that, I love BNI. I love my chapter, but I do have a job and a life outside of BNI as well, as everybody does. And what happens a lot is, we go to our meetings and we're all excited and we're doing our leadership team functions, and then when we're out of our meeting, we go off with our regular daily lives, and we may forget about some of the things that we wanted to do in BNI until the next week rolls around. That's what this goals program can help you do as well. It can help you plan out your leadership team term in order to make sure that you stay on track with not just hitting the numbers, but with your initiatives that you want to do as a chapter. All right, so let's take a look at how we do that in BNI Connect. Now, if you've been on any of my previous webinars, you'll know that in order to get to some of these other functions in BNI Connect, we're going to have to go beyond the home page, and we're going to have to enter these areas up at the top, network operations and reports most notably. Now, this is a goals program. Reports are always read-only. So if we want to do data entry, we always need to go to operations. Operations is our day-to-day management of the chapter. So I'm going to go to operations. And here we'll see a number of things on the left-hand side, from managing visitors to meeting management to managing memberships. But what we want is the fourth one down here, and that is managing goals. And this will help us to work with the goals program. You'll see here that we have two options. We have enter chapter goals and view chapter goals. By the way, in order to see the enter chapter goals, usually you have to be on the leadership team. So you have to be the president, the vice president, the secretary treasurer, or in a regional support role such as an ambassador or director consultant. Regular members of the chapter usually can only see the view chapter goals. And again, that also depends on the region that you're in and the permissions that they allow. But generally speaking, in order to enter goals, you do have to be vice president, president, or secretary treasurer. So the enter goals allows us to go in and enter them, to modify them, to change them. And viewing them, what we'll do is we can follow along with those goals throughout the year. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Enter Chapter Goals in order to get started. All right, so the first thing you're going to see on here is a date range. Now the goals, just the way the screen is laid out, not to overwhelm people with too much data, we work in 6-month increments, and that's just the way BNI has always been. We have these 6-month kind of term periods that go from April to October, and then October back to April again. So, I mean, really, it's April 1st to September 30th and October 1st to March 31st. So we have those two 6-month periods. So when we're putting in the goals, we're going to work in a 6-month time period. Now you can either choose, by default it's saying, okay, well, we're assuming that you're getting ready for the next 6-month time period, or October 1st. But you don't have to choose October if you want to. Let's say that you're just getting started now. You can just get started with this month. So I'm going to back this over to July. Just know that I'm going to be working on a 6-month period. So I'll be working on July, August, September, October, November, December. Okay. The next thing on here is we just need to do this once for our chapter, and we need to define a long-term vision and a mission statement. What these two things are, long-term vision is where do I want to get to? Kind of philosophically, where do we want to get to? More of a 50,000-foot overview of where we want to be as a chapter. So what is our long-term vision looking down the road? And you can see here I'm working with the Antarctica Burr chapter in the Shiver region that we have a long-term vision that we want to grow the chapter to be the largest chapter in the entire continent. In addition, we wish to be #1 chapter in closed business and referrals within a 200-mile radius. So that's our BHAG, our big, hairy, audacious goal for the chapter. Now you notice my strategy here is I don't like to put numbers into my long-term vision because that's what the short-term vision is all about, is hitting numbers along the way, those milestones. But that being said, there are many people that do recommend, you can put your BHAG number in here as well. So we want to be a chapter of 75 people or something like that, or $1 billion in closed business, whatever it is that you're looking to do. Now, where the long-term vision is where we want to get to, the mission statement is our guiding light or our guiding principles of how we're going to get there. So what are going to be our ideas that are our parameters that we're going to stay within, if you will, in order to get to that long-term goal? And what I've put in here is that our mission statement is to help members increase their business through a structured, positive, and professional word-of-mouth program that enables them to develop long-term, meaningful relationships with quality business professionals. Now that happens to be taken from the mission statement of BNI, but you can come up with your own chapter's mission statement in your own words. Laura has a good question. She says, who should be coming up with the vision and mission statement? Would this be leadership team or the whole chapter? My recommendation is that you work with your leadership team. Your leadership team, your president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and maybe your director consultant. So, one thing I was told a long time ago is that the chapter's not necessarily meant to be a committee on everything. So where you definitely want to take input and value from people, you don't want to get stuck in kind of a quagmire of too many opinions. So again, you're welcome to get the feedback of the chapter, but the final decision should be with the leadership team and with your director consultant. Does that make sense, Laura? Does that help? Awesome. All right, so again, you only have to establish those things once, and then when you're ready, or if you'd like to come back to that later, just click the go button. And Laura says, I just noticed we didn't have these, and I believe just from previous webinars that you might be a relatively new chapter as well, but if your chapter's never used the goals program before, then there wouldn't be a mission statement in here. So again, this is a personalized mission statement for your chapter. These are in here because I've done this webinar a few dozen times, and I've already typed it out and saved it in here from previous webinars. So it's in here for me. It's saved because, as I said, you really only have to do it once, and then you can always tweak it going forward. All right, hopefully that helps. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and click go. And when I do that, what it's going to do is it's going to take this start month here, so in my case, July 2016, and basically create a spreadsheet for us to enter our goals into the system. And here's the spreadsheet. As I said, it's going to do July through December. You can see that it's doing this in monthly increments, July, August, September, October, November, December. And then down here we have the different sections for the different chapter success drivers. These are the success drivers. In other words, these are the things that we're measuring. These are the things that we want to excel in within the chapter. So we have attendance percentage, total number of one-to-ones, CEUs, visitors, new memberships, number of members in the chapter, number of referrals, and thank you for closed business. So those are the different measurements. And then within each of these sections, we'll have the goal, and that's going to be the actual number that we come up with. So that's going to be the numerical goal that we're trying to achieve. And then we have two things that are called mechanisms. And if you remember what I said earlier, it's not just about hitting the numbers, but also helping you to keep track on your initiatives throughout the year. So the mechanisms are going to be things that you can do in order to support achieving that goal for that month. Again, the mechanisms are going to be things you can do in your chapter. They could be simple things like maybe it's a policy in B&I that you might have strayed away from and you really need to refocus on. Or maybe it's a program in B&I that you never really fully implemented. Maybe it's as simple as doing an education moment on a certain topic, or getting everybody to a specific training within a period of time, or doing an event with your chapter like a visitor's day or something like that. All of these things are the mechanisms that once we get them down on paper, we can now plan for them. Instead of just working week to week to week to week to week and hoping to remember stuff, now we can be a little bit more proactive about it. Now, before I start entering all of these numbers in here, one thing that you'll notice at the top is that it's going to ask you if you're entering your goals for the whole chapter or per member. And this is an important distinction because when we go to review the report later, if we enter the goals for the whole chapter, basically it just means, yes, I'd like to work with a big number. Right? I'd like to look at the chapter as a whole, come up with a big monthly number, and it's going to then use that number when I'm reviewing my goals later. If we're entering them per member, that's going to be we're working with a smaller number. What the system will do at that point, though, when you go to view the goals later, it will take your goal and multiply it by your goal number of members in order to come up with the chapter goal. Okay, so you have a little bit more control when you do it for the whole chapter. And if you prefer that the system does the math for you, you do per member. Now that is a overlying function. You can't choose that per success factor. It is, for the whole spreadsheet. Okay? So let's take a look at them. The very first one here is attendance percentage, and that one's pretty easy. Everybody, I hope, is striving for 100% attendance. That said, you may not be quite there yet, so you might want to work on getting to that point. Now, what I like to do is I always like to begin with the end in mind. So know where I want to get to, and also I know where we are right now. So that's also why I chose the current month to start with, because I know where we are right now, and I also know in 6 months about where we want to be. So for example, this is the Antarctica chapter. It's the middle of the winter. We have some attendance issues. So I may want to start with an attendance percentage that's realistic. We are right now at about 85% attendance. So, and I think it's probably realistic to get to maybe 95% attendance by the end of the year. So what I did there was I took the first number, where we are now, and a realistic goal for 6 months from now. And now all I really need to do is kind of fill in the blanks in between. So if I'm 85 now and I need to get 95, that is about 2 percentage points per month. So 87, 89, 91, 93, and that'll bring me to 95. All right, so now I see myself on a steady increase up to that point. Now that's a very simple way to do it, and that's the way I like to do it. That said, you can be much more complicated about this, and you can also be much more realistic about this. For example, you may know that certain months, like here in Rhode Island, we're in our summer months, and we're a heavy tourist community. I know that attendance always dips in the summer. And as much as we say we want to get 100% in the summer, it's always going to be in the 80s. But September rolls around and all the tourists go home, we immediately jump back up to 95%. And that's when I might want to start edging it to 100. That said, we don't want to overcomplicate things. It's more important to get something in there and then go back and tweak it later than it is to have nothing in there because you're overthinking it. Hopefully that makes sense. So now that I've got my goals in here, now I can come up with my monthly things of what I'm going to do to support those goals. What can I do on a monthly basis to help me to get to that next level? So that could be next month. I mean, we're already at the end of July here, but next month, maybe what I want to do to help increase attendance is, one thing that we really started slacking on is making sure that the vice president is sending out control letters, right? So if you're absent once, you get a friendly reminder saying, hey, we missed you at the meeting today. If you're absent twice, then you get a little bit more strongly worded control letter. If you're absent 3 times, say we might be opening your category if you're absent again, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to make sure that our VP is sending control letters. And I may need to keep on top of that for a couple of months, right? So we want to make sure that we get back into that process. So what's something else we can do to support that? Maybe we want to have an educational moment. I'm just going to call that an EM, educational moment, about the control letters. So we want to let our chapter know that we're going to be re-implementing that. So we're going to do an educational moment about the control letters and attendance. And maybe as part of that, we're going to do personal phone calls for people that are absent. Right, so these are all different things that we're doing to support that particular goal. And this could be anything that your leadership team really feels that they want to get involved with in order to help to support those goals. Now, if you're stuck and you can't think of anything to put in there, just know that up at top there's a button. It says Chapter Goal Guide. If I click this button, what this will do is give me a document that has some suggestions. So it has some common mechanisms for some of those benchmarks or the chapter success drivers. So for example, attendance. Acknowledge people for perfect attendance. That's a great idea. Instead of thinking about the negative, why don't we accentuate the positive? Why don't we celebrate the people that have perfect attendance? That's great. I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to highlight it, and I'm going to copy it and paste it right into October's window here. Right, and that's it. That's all you have to do. You just go through that. Here's a little hint for you. Just like working in Microsoft Word or Excel or anything else, every once in a while, click the Save button at the bottom. BNI Connect does have a 30-minute timeout. That means that if you don't move your mouse or click on anything in BNI Connect and you walk away for a half hour, which is really easy to do sometimes. You get a phone call or, somebody walks into your office and you get stuck in a conversation. Anything can happen. So just get in the habit of saving this every once in a while, because if you do get logged out, everything will be gone when you log back in again. All right, so the other thing is, now that I've got my attendance percentage, you don't need to go in order. All right, as a matter of fact, you probably don't want to go in order, because a lot of these numbers are going to be dependent on, for example, how big you think your chapter is going to be. So why don't we go down and do that one next? So I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to do number of members in the chapter and figure out what I would like our chapter size to look like. So I can tell you that right now we are at 30 members. And I think it would be great if we could grow to 40 members by the end of this 6-month period. right? So again, begin with the end in mind. I know where we are right now. I know where we'd like to be. And now we just need to split the difference. So I'm going to, again, let's see, 30 to 40, that's 10. So 32, 34, 36, 30, oh, not 60, 38, and 40. So a nice steady growth by 2 members for the next 6 months. And once again, what types of mechanisms are we going to do to support that? You know, maybe we want to have a visitor's day somewhere in there. Now, I know a visitor's day takes about 60 days to prepare for, so we're probably going to plan that for, let's say, October. And maybe we want to plan the visitor's day for the couple of months before that. And maybe we want to have something like a, maybe we're going to do a power team stack day. And maybe in September, we're going to do an educational moment on the visitor invitation in BNI Connect. Right? We're going to make sure that we register all of our visitors in BNI Connect for the Visitors Day. Right? Again, all different mechanisms that you can use in order to support your goal of number of new members. Right, so now let's work backwards again. We know how many number of members in the chapter we're going to have. That means that we should know how many new memberships we need each month in order to achieve that goal of number of members. So if we want to get to 30 members, we want to go from 30 to 32. Next month, we're going to need 2 new members, right? A net 2 members. That's the key. We're going to need a net 2 members. So that means that we're not putting a 2 in here. And the reason for that is that every chapter has attrition. And attrition is, you know, people will leave your chapter. Like it or not, people will leave your chapter. And good people will leave your chapter. And that's okay. You know, people leave for any number of reasons. You know, sometimes they leave because they're not implementing the system properly or because they don't see the benefit. But more often than not, it's they got a new job. They're going to work for a different employer. Maybe they're switching from, you know, whatever they do to selling real estate, but the real estate seat is already taken. You know, maybe they're moving to another place. Maybe they're having a life-changing event like a death in the family or a new child being born. Any of those things cause people to leave. On average, and again, this is just a very general average, a chapter will lose about 12 members per year. That's just a national average. So when we're talking about these goals, in order to not only get ahead, but also to kind of, you know, replace what we've lost, we should plan on getting our goal number +1, right? So it's not just 2 new members each month. We really need to get 3 new members each month in order to have a net 2 for the number of members in chapter. And once again, we just need to come up with our mechanisms to support that. Now, some of the things will be kind of cross-supporting with your goals. So Visitor Day, that will help you with new memberships as well. So I can just take and copy that in there. You know, other things that you can do with new memberships, you know, some very simple things, making sure that your visitor table is set up correctly, or making sure that you're doing visitor orientation after the meeting, making sure you always have new applications on file in your chapter box. All different mechanisms to help support that goal. And where do new members come from? That's right, they come from visitors, and visitors is the next thing that we should look at. Now, in order to get 3 new members, we're going to need at least 3 new visitors, right? And absolutely, we need at least 3 new visitors. And however, we're probably going to need a few more than that. This is where you're going to have to do a little bit of research and kind of your own calculation here, because you need to really keep in mind whatever your conversion ratio is. So the number of, in other words, if 1 in every 4 visitors that visits your chapter becomes a new member, then you have a closing ratio or a conversion ratio of about 25%. In other words, you need 4 visitors for every new member. You know, some people have a 50% conversion ratio. Some people have a 10% conversion ratio. It's very chapter specific. So figure out what your conversion ratio is, and then just basically you're going to have to multiply your number of visitors by that. So let's say that you have about a 33% closing ratio. That means we're going to need about 9 visitors per month, or about a visitor, about 2 visitors a week or so, in order to achieve that goal. And once again, you can complicate this further by you know you're going to have a visitor day in a certain month, so your visitors are probably going to be like 40 that month. Maybe you want to put in a goal for the number of visitors for that month to be much higher to compensate for the visitors day. Same thing with the new memberships, but again, I'm going with the simple approach for today. And things that can help with the visitors is, things like visitor day. Once again, I can copy and paste visitors day into here. Things like making sure that we have, maybe we're going to do a inviting campaign. Maybe we're going to go to more networking events as a chapter in order to meet people that might want to come and visit our chapter. All right, so now that we have these, we have the number of members, why don't we go to number of referrals? And honestly, referrals, one-to-ones, and CEUs in my book end up being the same thing. We follow what's called, at least here in our region, we call it the power of one. And our goal is that everybody does their best to achieve 1 referral, 1 CEU, and 1 one-to-one each and every week. So our goal is always going to be the number of members times 1, and then multiply that by the number of weeks. So in other words, it's going to be 120, 128, 136, 144, 152, and 160, right? 4 weeks, 40 members, 1 per member per week, right? And there's different things we can do to support those mechanisms as well for number of referrals, CEUs, and one-to-ones, such as, let's say, the BNI game. The BNI game is a great thing to do in order to excite your chapter about doing all of these good things. And finally, we have the thank you for closed business. What I find the easiest thing to do here is to say, we want to be a $2 million chapter. We want to be a $5 million chapter. We want to be a $6 million chapter. Well, if you want to be a $6 million chapter, that means you're going to have to turn in about $500,000 a month in thank you for closed business. So let's say we want to be a $6 million chapter. We're going to have to do a goal of $500,000 per month each and every month, right? Now be sure you save your changes. And after you save your changes, are you sure? Yes. We'll be able to go back to the operations menu. And if I go back to manage goals, I'll be able to view my chapter goals. Now it's going to show me based on a certain time period here. It's going to show me the current 6-month BNI period. And what it'll do is it'll start taking your goal and it'll put in your actual based on your POMS reports that have been submitted. Right, so I can see got 100 and then 98 and another 100 and then 96. And the same thing with the rest of the numbers. Now, again, we just kind of made these up on the spot. Why don't we take a look at a chapter that has some real live data. Now, as I mentioned, the Tampa area of Florida, I always know that I can pick any random chapter here and view their chapter goals. And every single chapter uses this, and it's no wonder that they have the highest average chapter size in the United States. So we have a long-term vision here for the, let's see, this is the BNI Profit Pros in South Tampa. Our meeting is the tip of the iceberg. The bulk of the chapter success includes everything outside of the meeting, one-to-one CEUs and passing referrals. And this chapter thrives with 45 by 10-5. All right, so they're looking for 100% attendance. And so far this 6-month term, they've had 94, 91, 95, and 92. Not too bad. We can see some things that they did to help with that. They did an education. They've done meeting stimulants, perfect attendance rewards, all sorts of great stuff. Number of one-to-ones. We can see their goals and we can see their achievements. And we can see they're striving to become a 50-member chapter as well. We can see what they've done for new memberships and visitors. So again, as you put these in, you can start to basically play along throughout the course of the year. All right, so we are at the bottom of the hour. What I'd like to do is to open this up to any questions. If you have any questions, please feel free to type those in now. While you're thinking of any final questions, just a reminder, this is being recorded and will be made available in the support site, as well as on youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. We have one more webinar this month, and that is tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, and we're going to be going through the online renewal process. How does that work for members, and how does it work for leadership teams as well? So feel free to join us tomorrow. And then we will be posting the August schedule very shortly. That should be up by next week. All right, I am not seeing any questions today. Does anybody have any questions at all about the goals program in BNI Connect, or really anything in BNI Connect? I'm always happy to answer any questions. All right, if there's no additional questions, just thank you guys so much for spending some time with me today. I hope you learned something new, and as always, a good referral for me is to please help me by promoting these webinars in your chapter or in your region. Again, the August webinar series, including the entire member series, will be posted shortly, both on your regional event calendars and in BNI Connect. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a wonderful day, and happy connecting.